this is a guy, Erik Johnson, who I think a lot of fans, particularly of the online variety, were not particularly happy that they brought him back. Personally, I never really saw a problem with it. They showed last year with Mark Stahl that they're willing to use this seventh defenseman mentor as actually a seventh defenseman. Mark Stahl did not get into a ton of games. I do not expect Erik Johnson to get into a ton of games. Erik Johnson does not expect Erik Johnson to get into a ton of games. He basically said in this availability that we're going to talk about, if he plays 20 games, 30 games, 40 games, 50 games, it doesn't matter. He's willing to do whatever it takes for the good of the team. I do think Erik Johnson does want to get at least 20 games because he is closing in on 1,000 NHL games. I wouldn't be surprised if that is a big part of why he is signing for one more year. He wants to reach that threshold. It's obviously prestigious. It's a serious achievement. I believe he only has to play 13 games before he gets to 1,000. So should reach that with the Flyers. But he signs his one-year extension, I believe it was on July 1st. He signed it before the official start of free agency. 1 year, $1 million, relatively reasonable contract. But we didn't get to talk to him. The media did get to talk to Erik Johnson yesterday. And Erik Johnson said some interesting things. I've interviewed Erik Johnson. Johnson is a generally speaking great human being. Like, he is one of those legitimately good dudes that you want in your room. He's a helpful guy. He's always got a smile on his face. He's willing to sacrifice for the good of the team. Like, you can tell why the Flyers wanted him to be the mentor. But the interesting things he had to say were more about one Matvei Michkov. So we've talked about it this week, Bill and I, the idea of Scott Laughton being an aid for Michkov in terms of helping him to integrate with the culture. Scott Laughton is such a big locker room guy. He's the kind of guy who makes sure everyone's having a good time. Everybody's tight. You know, he's inviting people out to the bars. He's hanging out, going in prank wars with the Travi. Like, this is just what he does. He is a glue guy in that room. And the idea is that he will be able to help Matvei Michkov, especially if Matvei Michkov, because he is a very competitive, intense person, might lose his temper at times, and that Laughton can maybe serve to, calm everything down if Michkov flies off the handle occasionally. Well, one thing that was interesting about this availability with Erik Johnson is that Erik Johnson apparently might serve this role as well. And I didn't really think of that because Erik Johnson obviously is a defenseman. My thought was that he would be more focused on, helping to develop Igor Zamula, helping to develop Cam York, Jamie Drysdale, that would be his role. However, Erik Johnson basically said that he's already texting via translator with Matvei Michkov. They have the same agency, CAA. I believe Michkov's agent is JP Barry, and Johnson's agent is Pat Brisson. But Barry and Brisson work together. They're in the same agency. They work hand in hand, so there's a connection there. Johnson is already talking to Michkov. He's already trying to integrate him into the team culture, make him feel welcome, make him feel comfortable. How important do you think this can be for a guy like Michkov, who's not only getting used to a new league, he's going to be getting used to a new country?
I mean, this is huge, Charlie. I mean, I feel like not even just the team, but the city, they're embracing Michkov. Like, I'm driving over from our office back into Jersey. Charlie, I see a billboard welcoming Michkov. Like, this whole entire city is welcoming him. And like, I don't understand people who have a problem with signing Erik Johnson for 1 year, because you guys got to remember, when you're talking about a rebuild, there's a lot of young people that are going to go through your team. Those veteran players are extremely important, not only for their development, but it's a tough adjustment, especially for Michkov coming over from a different country, a different league. Obviously, the KHL, we all know it's a different type of style as well. So being able, I think that's huge on Erik Johnson as well, taking the initiative already, trying to communicate and make him feel super comfortable. So I'm loving everything I'm hearing, and this is important. This is exactly what you want to do for Michkov.
Yeah, I think it speaks, as you hinted, it speaks to the character of Erik Johnson. Now, is it possible that like the Flyers asked him? Is it possible that maybe Pat Brisson or JP Barry asked Erik Johnson to do this? It's possible. But knowing what I know about Erik Johnson, it wouldn't shock me if he came up with this idea on his own. Maybe he reached out to Brisson and JP Barry. It's like, hey, can you give me Matvei's number? I'd love to text him and welcome him to the team now that I'm officially part of the team for another year. It seems like something he would do. And there absolutely is value in having a good guy. And Erik Johnson is very clearly one of the good guys in this league. There's value in that when, as Bill and I talked about this week, there's probably no more important person, at least for the next 5-6 years of the Philadelphia Flyers, than Matvei Michkov. And you need to protect your investment. You need to do everything you can to make him feel welcome, make him feel comfortable, because a comfortable player is going to be a more productive player and is going to be more likely to hit his ceiling. And the Flyers hope that ceiling is that of a superstar. If Erik Johnson is going to be Matvei Michkov's professional best friend this season, I would give him more than $1 million to do that. Like, that is a very, very important role.
I'm not going to lie to you. So, Charlie, I was reading some of your discourse on Twitter with some of the fans, and one thing I highly agreed with you. You know, a lot of people want to know who's going to be on Michkov's line. I kind of really want Coots on that line for that veteran presence. And when you're talking about the transition from the KHL to the NHL, I can't think of anyone better to be line mates than with Sean Couturier, especially at center there.
Yeah, it was just something I was chatting with people on Twitter about last night. Obviously, everybody's very excited about the imminent arrival of Matvei Michkov. But yeah, it's kind of like the two centers who are most likely to end up with Michkov are Couturier and Frost. And they both have points in their favor as to why they should be the center. The big thing for Couturier, and this is something you spoke to, is just Couturier. I don't know if I've covered a player. Personally, there's certainly, I guess if you've covered Sidney Crosby or Wayne Gretzky, but like for me personally, I haven't covered a player that is smarter, has a smarter hockey mind than Sean Couturier. He thinks the game at a higher level than any player I've covered. That's Claude Giroux, that's Jake Voracek, really good players, but no one thinks the game at a higher level, for me personally, that I've watched, than Sean Couturier. Matvei Michkov, at least offensively. Defensively, he's not perfect. But offensively, he is an offensive genius. He thinks the game at such a high level. That actually supposedly is one of the reasons why he's clashed with teammates before, is that he sees things on the ice that they don't see, and then he gets frustrated because he's like, how did you not see that? If I went in this angle, I was going to score a goal. How did you not see me do that? And they didn't see it because they're not the hockey genius that Matvei Michkov is. Well, Sean Couturier is the guy who, and this isn't me slandering Morgan Frost. I'm not saying Morgan Frost is a dumb hockey player, but he doesn't have the same hockey IQ that Sean Couturier has. Very few players have the same hockey IQ that Sean Couturier has. And the exciting part about a Couturier-Michkov duo at 5-on-5 is that maybe they think the game at the same level, and in the offensive zone, they can just think, they can play off each other in a way that Frost and Michkov might not be able to. Even if Frost is the better pure passer, maybe the dual hockey IQs of Couturier and Michkov in the offensive zone, it could potentially lead to a lot of points. It's an exciting idea.
No, 100%. And the way I look at it as well is like, there's no secret. Coots had a bad year last year, and possibly playing with a young, hungry Michkov, they could help each other out. It's like, I scratch your back, you scratch my back. So I'm excited. If that does happen, I would definitely be excited for that.
Yeah, and Couturier's best offensive years, to be sure, were mostly paired with Claude Giroux, and that was different types of players. I'm certainly not comparing Michkov stylistically to Giroux, but the similarities the two has are the fact that they're both super high skilled players who are offensive wizards, and Michkov projects to be that. Giroux obviously was that. And Couturier was able to be like the support piece, the guy who made sure they had the puck all the time so that Giroux could work his magic in the offensive zone. Maybe he could serve that same purpose for Matvei Michkov.
110%, man.
Yeah, but going back to Erik Johnson for a second.
Yes.
I do want to talk a little bit about the role he's going to play, because he's not getting paid much. He's on the roster. And I think the argument from the people who were opposed to the re-signing is that he's taking up a spot that you could use to dress a kid. That by signing Erik Johnson, that means that it's less likely that Adam Jennings makes the team. It makes it less likely that Ronnie Attard makes the team, Hunter McDonald, guys like that. The important part you have to remember, and again, you can disagree with this philosophy, but this is the way the Flyers look at it. Erik Johnson is being signed to be the number 7. He is being signed to be the extra defenseman. Now, he might start in game one. It's possible. Maybe he has a good camp. Maybe somebody gets hurt, whatever. But they did not sign him to play every night. That's what they told us was the case for Mark Stahl. I will admit, I was skeptical. I was like, is John Tortorella really going to bench Mark Stahl, the veteran, the guy who he's coached before, who last season was in the top 4 on a Stanley Cup Finals team? Is he really going to have the guts to bench Mark Stahl? And he did. Bench him quite a lot. It seems like Erik Johnson is going to take up that same role. And the way that the Flyers look at it is, yeah, they could theoretically have Adam Ginning as the 7. But they would rather Adam Ginning play every night in the AHL than play 35 games in the NHL, serving as the 7 and only checking in when a guy gets hurt or when a guy needs a break or when Torts wants to send a message to whoever he's angry at on that particular day. They don't want a rookie playing that role. They don't want a rookie in a rotation. They want a rookie playing every day, whether it's, or not even a rookie, just a young developing player. They want that guy playing most of the time. That wouldn't necessarily be the case if he was serving as the 7. That's why they look at it and they say Erik Johnson isn't blocking a kid. He is serving in a role that we would not have a kid serve in anyway. And if we're going to have a number 7, why not get a great guy who can help us out in the room when he's not playing and be a positive influence on the young players, be a mentor to the defensemen, and maybe even be a best friend to Matvei Michkov.
Listen, I don't see any negatives with Erik Johnson here. I mean, like, just look at everyone in the blue line. I mean, like, I know Nick Seeler is like, what, 30, 31? But, like, everyone else is pretty young. And Nick Seeler doesn't have a lot of experience of playing at the highest level. There's something super valuable, especially during a rebuild. And I've heard some gripes as well about the Garnet Hathaway extension as well. But, like, there's something super valuable of having veteran players, especially when you have a bunch of young players that they can just look up to. So, I mean, Erik Johnson, like you talked about, we're talking 20 games at most, but having him be supporting those young guys, that's the real value. And look, if the Jennings, the Adders of the world, if they're lighting on fire in Lehigh Valley, yeah, I'll be screaming too. Like, let's try to get them up in Philly. Let's see what they got here with the Flyers. But for right now, I mean, just don't think to be mad about with Erik Johnson, guys. We got our Yoda here for the blue line. Come on.
All silly like the mayor.